For years, no one on Fortune's Keep knew where grandmother was. Some said she had hidden herself away from the world. Others believed she had been watching everything, from somewhere deep within the heart of the island. But that day, after a long silence, two people were summoned almost at the exact same time. Two people who had almost nothing in common, except their destination. The first was Little Red Riding Hood, a name that entered the battlefield before she did. A fighter everyone knew, and one many believed was impossible to defeat. The second was the Wolf, an unknown operator, someone whose name no one had any reason to remember. They were both given the same mission. Each of them already carried their own box of sweets. All they had to do was reach grandmother before the other one did. There was only one problem. Neither of them knew where grandmother was. Their destination was the same, but their paths were not. Red stepped out into the light, while the wolf emerged from the darkness. From that moment on, each of them would have to find their own way, and somewhere in the heart of the keep, grandmother was waiting. Not with fear, but with confidence. She readied her weapon and turned her eyes toward the battlefield. Because this time, she wasn't just another character in the story. She was the one who had started it. Minutes later, both of them were flying above the same battlefield. One island, one destination, and to rivals who had no idea what they would have to lose to reach the end of this race. Fortune's Keep was beneath them, and the race had begun. The wolf was the first to enter the battlefield. He was in a hurry to reach grandmother, but Fortune's Keep quickly taught him that speed was the least of his problems. Inside the building, he found his first weapon. The first enemy appeared. The wolf opened fire and took him out. A second enemy arrived, and the wolf was forced to fight again. The wolf walked out of the building with 2 victories behind him. Another enemy was waiting outside. The bullets reached him before he could find proper cover. The wolf went down. His first attempt was over. But on the other side of the island, Little Red Riding Hood descended from the sky, carrying the same confidence that had always followed her name. She searched for something she could use to defend herself. She found a weapon. She was still searching for grandmother. Before long, gunfire changed her route as well. The first shots came in. Red found the enemy and fired back. The fight began out in the open. Her armor took damage, but she refused to retreat. She reached cover and opened fire again, but the pressure was too much. The final shots knocked her to the ground. Moments later, Little Red Riding Hood was eliminated too, but on Fortune's Keep, death isn't always the end of the story. The wolf had been given another chance. This time he didn't rush straight into the buildings. He took the high ground and watched the battlefield from the rooftops. The first time, the island had hunted him. Now, he wanted to become the hunter. He checked the windows, the streets, and the rooftops one by one. He knew now that an enemy could appear from anywhere, and that a single moment of hesitation could end everything all over again. The wolf kept changing his position. He refused to make himself an easy target again. Every step was more careful than the last, and every second he stayed alive gave him more confidence. Eventually, he found his target. The distance closed, and the wolf opened fire. This time, he wasn't the one caught off guard. He kept the pressure on, until the enemy finally went down. Another victory. The wolf returned to the high ground and continued searching. Slowly, he began to believe that maybe, this time, Fortune's Keep wouldn't be able to stop him. But on this island, too much confidence can be just as dangerous as fear. The bullets came again. This time, the enemy had seen him first. The wolf moved across the rooftop, trying to break the angle of fire. But the hits kept coming. His armor couldn't take much more, and the wolf went down again. For a few seconds, it looked like everything was over, but he still had one chance left. Using the last of his equipment, he revived himself and got back on his feet. He was wounded, but he refused to retreat. He entered the building and found an enemy standing almost directly in front of him. The distance was too short to escape. The wolf fought, but this time, there was no second chance. His second opportunity was gone, and only moments later, Little Red Riding Hood returned as well. This time she carried the experience of her previous defeat with her. She landed, found her weapon, and immediately started moving again. Red was no longer moving. With the same careless confidence she had shown the first time, every window looked like a threat, and every wall became cover. But time was working against her. The circle was getting smaller, and the path to Grandmother was becoming more limited. She noticed movement behind a wall. Her weapon came up. Once again, someone stood between her and the rest of her journey. Red fired, and the enemy fired back. Her armor broke. She kept fighting for a few more seconds until the next shots found her. Little Red Riding Hood was killed again. But this time, the wolf had returned with something more than another chance. Heavy armor, a minigun, and power he had never possessed before. The wolf was now a juggernaut. The first enemy revealed himself. The wolf didn't look for cover. The minigun began to spin, and the sheer volume of fire brought the enemy down before he could put up much of a fight. The weapon had barely gone silent when a second enemy appeared. Now, the enemies were the ones who needed to get out of his way. Out in the street, more gunfire came from ahead. Bullets slammed into his heavy armor. The wolf changed position and fired back. He was stronger now, but the island still wasn't ready to surrender. At the same time, Little Red Riding Hood climbed through a window and entered another building. When an enemy appeared directly in front of her, her weapon went silent. Red pulled out her knife, and after several brutal strikes, finally killed him. But Red was still alive. She had enough time to collect what was left behind and keep moving. She left the room, moved through the hallways, and climbed the stairs. The next floor was quiet. Red moved forward carefully. She checked the doors, watching for any movement that might reveal another enemy. Eventually, she found one. Red reacted first. She pulled the trigger, and the enemy dropped to the ground, but he wasn't alone. His teammate arrived only seconds later. Red turned, but it was already too late. The bullets killed her. Meanwhile, the wolf was still moving. From the rooftops, he searched the surrounding area. The heavy armor had slowed him down, but his firepower was something very few could survive. Two enemies appeared in front of him. The minigun roared. The first was swallowed by the gunfire, but the wolf didn't stop. Moments later, the second enemy was eliminated too. Two more enemies were gone, and the wolf was still standing. But Red still had one more chance. This time, she decided to be more careful. Instead of landing in the middle of the fighting, she chose the edge of the zone, a place where she believed she could stay away from the enemies. But something happened that she hadn't planned for. The circle moved. The safe zone that had been only seconds away. Red started running, but the gas was faster. With every step, her health dropped lower. This time, no enemy killed her, just one bad decision. Now, only the wolf remained. If the race really was what Grandmother had claimed it was, then he no longer had a rival. All he had to do was survive and reach his destination. But the smaller the circle became, the heavier the resistance grew. Near the rocks, bullets slammed into his armor again. The wolf found the direction of the fire and turned toward the enemy. The enemy revealed himself from behind a wall. The wolf held down the trigger. The target tried to escape, but there was no escaping the firepower of a juggernaut. Another enemy was removed from his path. Farther ahead, more gunfire came from the buildings in front of him. The wolf took hits, but he didn't retreat. The firefight continued, and step by step, he pushed deeper into enemy territory. Another enemy appeared near the structure. The wolf immediately swung the minigun toward him. A few seconds were enough. The enemy dropped, and the path opened again. From the high ground, the coastline and the lighthouse came into view. The circle had become so small that the wolf was certain Grandmother couldn't be far away now. For the first time, the end of the journey truly felt close. but another enemy was waiting across the water. Gunfire crossed between them. The wolf took damage, but refused to stop firing until the enemy finally went down. The wolf moved along the water and through the rocks. The gas was behind him, and the only path left led directly toward the final circle. Suddenly, an explosion landed beside him. The juggernaut armor absorbed the impact. Another enemy appeared from behind the rocks. The wolf turned and took him down as well. The farther he advanced, the narrower the path became under the coastal structure. Another enemy was waiting in ambush. The fight began at close range. The wolf took damage, but never released the minigun until the enemy in front of him went down. The wolf moved forward again. Even on the final stretch, the gunfire never stopped and made his way toward the last buildings. There was no point in turning back anymore. Inside the building, one final guard was waiting, but he couldn't survive the power of the minigun. The wolf took him out, but then another minigun began to roar. The wolf turned, and standing in front of him was another juggernaut, Grandmother. Grandmother had never been waiting to be rescued. The wolf opened fire. Grandmother fired back, and the juggernauts, only a few meters apart, entered the final battle. But the wolf was alone. Grandmother wasn't. Her fire, combined with the men around her, finally broke through the wolf's armor, and the wolf fell. That was the moment the meaning of the entire story changed. The letters, the race, the promise of reaching Grandmother. It had all been a trap. Little Red Riding Hood never made it to the end. The wolf made it all the way to Grandmother herself, only to be killed by the very person he had spent the entire journey trying to reach. The wolf lost the mission, but the unknown operator no one. Remembered at the beginning of the story had come so far and become so dangerous that in the end, Grandmother herself had to enter the battlefield to stop him. From the first letter, the entire story, to the final bullet, had been Grandmother's plan.